Hi, I'm Siddhartha Dash, or Sid Dash, and the Chief Researcher of Chartis. Today, I'm going to look at the risk management analytics and the technology ecosystem that today is available to support that. So let's take a look at the computational finance and risk management technology that's available today. What has happened is there's been a revolution in the hardware stack. It's somewhat underestimated and still underexploited. A lot of this revolution in the hardware stack, i.e., growth in GPUs, is heavily in production these days. After all, GPUs are being increasingly levered in AI applications, in Gen AI applications, in text analysis, in statistical frameworks, in a wide range of environments. However, we often ignore the broad range of hardware accelerated solutions that are available. There data parallel programming, which is actually in some ways the natural state of risk management and computational finance applications. Computational finance and risk management algorithms are naturally data parallel. The hardware infrastructure historically hasn't been so, but today we have a wide range of data parallel options. We have CPU GPU combinations. We have programmable solutions, i.e., FPGAs, ASICs, etc. We have GPUs themselves. And with GPUs, there are several software ecosystems that support them. Obviously, the most well-known is the NVIDIA GPU with its CUDA ecosystem, but there are others as well. Indeed, we would argue that every element of the traditional software stack has an hardware accelerated equivalent today. And this really gives a rise to interesting options on how quantitative analysts need to write their algorithms, how risk analysts need to think about their algorithms. And these are not the only options. When we think about it in detail, we'll find that there is an enormous range of database types. Many, if not most, are available in open source and other commercial arrangements. We also find that there's a range of hardware accelerated databases, GPU-driven databases, which provide new ways of slicing and dicing data in scale. So we think the revolution in analytical and data management frameworks that support, underpin, and surround risk management and computational finance algorithms and techniques has reached a level of maturity in and across the board, if you will. So let's examine some of the more key issues in this space, if you will. As mentioned before, the technology ecosystems has many options. We examined some of the options on the hardware side, but how to combine all of this is also a broad ecosystem, and it's broader than we generally realize. The growth of clouds is all of the growth of the cloud architecture, which has often been synonymous with the hyperscalers and their tech stack, in our view, is a broader and more nuanced story than we often realize. First of all, each of the cloud providers that has their own stack, so it provides a complex architectural mechanism that you need to buy into and you need to dive into if you are going beyond infrastructure as a service. But even over there, clearly there are many different ways to configure your remote services infrastructure. There are different niches where the requirements still remain substantially distinct and unique. Large manufacturers, energy companies, and those with very, very large data sets often require uh, their remote data management and remote storage management infrastructure to be relatively close and tightly interconnected with their operational infrastructure. Uh, Part of this is the sheer size of the data sets, part of this is the latency time they would require, and so on and so forth. There are others which require grids of very specific capability. Their burstability requirements are unique. Sometimes that burstability requirement is concentrated at a particular time, i.e., the high volumes come at a very short time period. Others have latency dynamics that constrain them to go with specific remote services environment where the data center may intercommunications within the data center may be hardened to ensure that high volume message flows at particular times or in particular contexts do not disrupt the computational environment that has been supported. So if you think about the infrastructure, it's far from being a commodity. There are many nuances and options within this infrastructural environment. So, and they're increasingly mature, enabling institutions to think about what is their cloud/remote services strategy, which how are they thinking about the data storage environment in the cloud? Is it going to be an large array-oriented data infrastructure? Is it going to be the kind of data infrastructure that you find available from commercial cloud providers? There are many, many nuances here. And as I mentioned before, the specific nature of computation, the specific concentrations of the grid, the need to keep tight linkages with the operational infrastructure, all of which currently are deciding the nature of the cloud/remote services options that enterprises are selecting, and hence enterprises need to think through their requirements carefully, and vendors need to think more carefully about what their clients need specifically. Not, it could be a hybrid of solutions. And that's what we believe in the long run. There will be an overarching view of a combination of hyperscalers and more specialized services that sort of that provide for unique niches and specific requirements, such as tight integration with operational infrastructures, etc. Meanwhile, we have steadily moved away from the previous sort of language wars, if you will, to a more and broader multilingual environment. We see a great maturity in the language environments, if you will. I mean, there has been the growth of Python, of course, which is increasingly the Swiss Army knife of languages, enabling a variety of libraries and applications and ecosystems to be wrapped around in Python, easily accessed through the Python sort of lens, if you will. So that's a significant sort of movement and structural change, if you. However, the changes here are not restricted to the Python ecosystem. We see dramatic growth and changes in the whole Java ecosystem. We see growth of languages such as Kotlin, which increasingly provide the data science requirements, if you will, in more transaction flow oriented systems such as trading platforms, etc., particularly for equities and trading platforms in equities, fixed income, etc., etc. We also see a dramatic growth in domain-specific languages. domain-specific languages which target specific subsectors within the financial markets and universe, if you will, whether it be OTC derivatives, credit, insurance contracts, etc. We also think that with the rapid growth of potential co-pilots leveraging NLP and Gen AI techniques, we think that domain-specific languages are an interesting marriage or interesting sort of option that enables, in combination with copilots, a very powerful sort of democratization and broadening of access to uh, complex conceptual arenas within the financial markets, if you will. So to sort of recapsulate here, we're seeing a substantial growth in the variety, diversity of language types. A lot of this is broader than just financial services. We're seeing these changes happen in many other sectors, but its overarching consequences in financial services we think are fairly broad. And we think the language environment in many ways is all grown up and more than it ever used to be. Swiveling around to the data universe, integrating required data is always challenging. There are many varied asset classes, variety of contracts, even the fact that increasingly data is aligned to the specific problem area means there are many more types of data architectures available out there. In some ways, the overall, from a technology and architecture perspective, the idea that you used one type of data store in the past was simplifying, but it made the problems itself more challenging. Today, we have a broad range of data options. We have a remarkably diverse set of databases, spatial and graph databases, data grids, array-oriented databases, relational databases, but architected differently from the conventional ones, uh, columnar databases, and so on. And you can get very specific combinations and hybrids of these. For example, in the array database environment, you can get very specific array structures. Historically, many of these array structures were targeted at very specific areas within finance. So some of these array structures were targeted towards, say, interest rate derivatives, others towards fixed income, others towards FX, others handle low latency time series, and each of them had accelerator options and accelerator and scalability options very specific to their business problem and business context, if you will. Today, you increasingly have more general purpose array and vector databases, and increasingly with the rapid growth of machine learning, NLP, and other related techniques, we see the increasing industrialization of array and vector databases, if you will. Equally geospatial requirements have also been driving these database architectures. So, again, like many of the things that we've seen here, there is a solution for every problem. There is there is a tool out there which satisfies the exact mix of flexibility, scalability, industrialization requirements, etc. But it needs careful analysis. Uh, there is increasing choice, and as everyone knows, that sometimes as everyone has gone to a supermarket or attended a large buffet lunch or dinner knows that sometimes choice is frustrating. This sheer variety and diversity of options can be paralyzing in itself. But we think, just like in any of these areas, there is an incredible variation and There's an incredible set of options available in the data stack. So I'd make the last sort of structural observation, if you will, is what we see is, and equally with all of this that we saw, which was mostly on the tech stack, the programming languages, the hardware acceleration capabilities, the cloud/remote services options, etc., the deployment options that you have available, all of them have grown dramatically. But also just the basic commercial data available. The universe of commercial data has increasingly become large, complex, and varied. It used to be just market data, and as we will examine in other sessions, commercial data today is very broad. It's increasingly moved from market data to entity and counterparty data to operational data, and of course, an incredibly varied data sets. With this variety of data sets, you need to use the full range of technology options available, from the data infrastructure, from the broadcast and middleware infrastructure to Coral, and handle this data, this explosion in both internal and external commercial data appropriately. So again, I will close by making the point today: the risk management technology infrastructure increasingly has caught up to the modeling and associated data requirements of risk management and computational finance. The algorithms at a conceptual level generally require data parallel capabilities, and generally require support from array and vector-oriented data infrastructure. This hasn't been historically available, but today, driven by powerful forces such as generalization and general availability of AI, general availability of hardware stacks driven by other industries such as gaming, medical imaging, etc., we now have the full panoply of data parallel computational, and a varied data storage and management capabilities. We equally have a huge number of deployment options, cloud, various hybrid options, etc., from a remote services perspective. How to decide which mix of all of this is your choice is a challenge for both vendors and financial institutions. But we think that the challenges of plenty are always better than the challenges of scarcity. And with that, I'll close.